Now introducing my first guest, the one, the only. There's millions of them. Colin Patrick Giles, everyone.
What? Me? Hello.
On today's lesson, we're going to talk about
It's a lesson
what
for
it
sure.
means to be a content creator in today's age. I'm just kidding. Colin, what are we talking about today?
So today we're going to be talking about crash cams, as they call it, but essentially just smaller, more compact cameras that can take a beating. Pretty affordable. I mean, a lot of you may have heard of the Blackmagic 4K, Blackmagic 6K, the whole Canon series. But today we're going to be talking about the FX9, the whole kind of Sony cinema line that they're going to be doing.
Is there a reason why we're doing Sony?
Well, we are ambassadors. No, we just love Sony.
We want to be ambassadors. Sony, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Give us a call.
Hashtag
please.
alpha. Be alpha.
Should have brought the hats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tripp and I went to NAB, was it?
CES.
It was CES, yeah. The convention in Las Vegas about 2 years ago for the Sony after party. Got to play with some of the alphas. Was it 2 years ago?
That was a while ago. Yeah, I think it's 2 years.
Yeah.
Went to Vegas. And
when we
what
could.
happens in Vegas is super boring if you're under 21.
Yeah. If we were like, what, 19? 20?
20?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were close.
We were close.
But we weren't quite there yet. You know?
Yeah.
It was cool to see all the electronics and stuff, but man, would have been a lot cooler if. I'm not saying you need alcohol or drugs to have fun. No, that's not what we're saying. We're just saying that Vegas isn't fun for minors.
For minors, yeah. But yeah, in terms of the whole like Sony line they've been going on right now, I think the 25th of February, so in 6 days, they got another presentation for the FX3, which has been leaked. We could probably put a picture up over. Yeah, well, FX3.
Gerald, could you pull that up? Oh, he's not here. We didn't hire anyone.
Javier's not here either.
Oh, damn it.
But I mean, took down some notes here. Right. We got the FX9. Which is kind of the big beefy camera, and then the FX6, the new released one, pretty competitive with the Komodo. Considering we have Sony glass, it probably makes sense more, but the Komodo's got some cool features.
Yeah, and without even talking about any of the specs, the features and stuff like that, we've had discussions because since January of last year, we've wanted to get a Komodo. Your year-end goal for last year was get a Komodo. Mm-hmm. And we found ourselves in the position through hard work, dedication, and networking. We found ourselves in the position where we could buy a Komodo, but it would have bankrupted us. But we could have
set us back a little bit.
It would have set us back a little bit. It wouldn't have bankrupted us.
No, just because when you're buying a Red, you're not just buying the brain body of it. You're buying another 10 grand of equipment on top of that.
But there was something you kept saying about, we could go with anything else. We could go with anything else. The A7s3, which was dropped last year, amazing specs. You're like, it's cool. But why we should get a Red is...
Because it inspires, I would say. Just because, it's all about the story, I would say. But as a gear tech kind of junkie with that... just having, like, right now, this camera is an RX100 Mark IV, pretty old. I got it in end of high school.
That one.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, at first, that inspired you to create, and then this one's the A7S2 right here, and we got the Sony A7 Mark III on Tripp's face right now. That's why it looks so good, all the megapixels.
I think it just looks good because it's me.
Yeah. You did wear a nice, vibrant, sharp shirt today.
Oh, yeah, my mom gave me so many compliments today.
Yeah.
It's nice living with your mother for a few things, but number one is compliments. I'd say number one is compliments.
Did you choose the shirt?
I chose the shirt, yes.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, she didn't pick the shirt.
I did not choose this sweater. This is from Papa Willie, my dad.
Yeah, that's why it looks like it. It's from someone who lived through the 70s.
Yep, just kind of bland earth tones. It's my style.
But yeah, the inspiration you're talking about with the Komodo, and like I totally agree with that, because when I first got my A7 III, it was a few weeks left in Alaska before I had to go back to school. And, you know, it was cool. It stayed in the box. I didn't want to do anything with it. I was like, oh, no, it's Sony Alpha. It's Sony Alpha.
Yeah.
And then Colin was up there with me up until the day you left, and I had a whole nother week to do whatever I wanted. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had this camera. And I shot fake commercials. I shot a fake documentary of Jeremy going out and not catching anything. Our buddy Jeremy in Alaska.
Yep.
Follow him, 8 to 6 mile. That's the number 8.
Yeah,
T-O.
at 8 mile to 6 mile on Instagram.
Yeah, follow him. He took me out snagging, and I didn't have a permit, so I filmed him, and it was just so cool switching between slow-mo and stuff like that, and it was that inspiration you were talking about, because before that, all I had was a T6i.
Yeah.
And when I got that, I was inspired to do a bunch of shooting. And so it's kind of like when you make that step up, if we get something that's in the same body as what we have, it's not going to inspire us as much as getting a cinema level Jason Momoa, you know, Thanos gauntlet.
The gold, or the brass Komodo with all the gold Tilta cage on it. Yeah. No, that one's pretty cool. I mean, you can like put the tech specs like on paper and kind of like look at it and be like, this one does 4K, this one does 6K, but it's kind of like, if you're using it for maybe the wrong purposes, then it's not going to work. But yeah, no, definitely in Alaska, it was kind of like, okay, like we have 4K now, like we're going to go out and get some wide, cool shots of the ocean or something. And especially using the Zeiss glass that we've had, the baddest lenses, E-mount. That's why it's been kind of hard to switch, I guess, because you already went from Canon to Sony, so it's kind of like, do you stay with Sony? Do you switch to Canon because they have the RF mount? Or, you know.
First things first, I do what I want.
Yeah.
I want everyone to know I do what I want. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Also, sorry, the little RX100 turned off. That's what you get for the little high school camera.
Hey, you know what? It's just showing, you know, and that's a great thing to like kind of segue us into the main talking point. What camera do you want to talk about first? Sony, Komodo, where do you want to go?
I think I'd like to talk about Sony first, just because of the amount of like releases they've been coming out with, which is kind of, I would assume, surprised everyone. Whereas, or just me, I don't know. But they've come out with, you know, the FX6, obviously, the A1, which we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth later. Very overpriced, but capable. And then, of course, the A7s3, which, you know, having the A7S2 here, it's kind of like, okay, maybe we upgrade to that. That'd be kind of cool. But, and then finally the Komodo as kind of the more in the wheelhouse price-wise, but definitely different features. We'll kind of get into that more as well with the global shutter. But kind of just starting off with the FX6. Before I kind of get into it, do you have any like thoughts? I mean, you've obviously seen it a little bit. Very little.
I'm looking at it on B&H right now, and you know, the body alone is 5,998.
Yep.
No cents. No 99 cents. So it seems cheaper. I think after you throw that 1,000 up there up front, it's not like 99
so it's like $3 more than the Komodo.
Yeah. You know. I'm going to let you talk about the specs, but just looking at this, you know, it definitely is a step up. Like, even just looking at the dynamic range, you know, you get 15 stops. I'm pretty sure I get 13 in this camera, maybe, on a good day.
Like whatever they advertise, I guess.
Yeah, whatever they advertise, but it's not really what you're getting.
Yeah.
You know, and they're advertising 15, which means we probably get 10. This probably gets 13.
Yeah, unless and mine's pretty low. I mean, like, if you're doing, we don't shoot S-Log 3 just because that's a pain to color. We're not really maybe too familiar with DaVinci, but you know, just editing in Final Cut, it's like, okay, these are easy files to work with.
Yeah.
Which with the FX6 is kind of cool because versus its big brother, the FX9, it used, what was it? It was called like QXD fast cards or whatever. These ones take dual SD, kind of like the Alpha, so that's why it kind of has that Alpha name on it.
Okay, so I do see that. It's got the little A in the top right corner.
Yeah, and I mean, just form factor wise, like you know, like I was saying, crash cam, you know, it makes sense to put on a gimbal, put on your shoulder, put on any kind of rig, just because it's pretty small. Whereas the FX9 is kind of more that bigger. Okay, put this on a tripod.
Yeah, we've both held Aria Miras, which is a sizable camera. I mean,
oh yeah.
If you don't know what that is, you go to the NFL or watch the NFL, and you see like these big clunky cameras on someone's.
The halftime show they used, I think, 50 of them.
50.
Yeah. There's like some behind the scenes shots of just guys running around with the mirrors and stuff.
So like, how much do those cost?
I think you can buy like a kit, like an Amira kit, kind of over the shoulder for like probably like 85 without the raw license, because then you have to buy the license to shoot 4K on it. Because I think it still does like 2K.
So you're telling me that everyone tweeting at The Weeknd for dancing with a camera and all that jazz, they're really just downing on people for basically taking a parking lot and filling it with Teslas for 5 minutes.
That people are just running around with.
Holding and running around. That's the price point. Is a parking lot, like a Walmart parking lot full of Teslas.
It looks great though. I mean, just the color science in general. That's what they're paying for, I guess. Is just to like everyone's all hooked up.
I mean, there's nothing compared
with all those
to our
lights
skin
flying
tone.
over the place. It still keeps it with RGB fine. So it's like wow.
But like you were saying about the FX6, it's a crash cam. You can take it anywhere. It's well.
It's like B cam too. It's kind of bigger, like the Venice 6K you were talking about. That was on that.
On Our World, the new Netflix documentary with David Attenborough.
David
Attenborough takes you on a journey,
and it looks great.
To the Arctic.
You should see it. Planet Earth, or what is it? Planet Earth.
Our World.
It's the like behind the scenes kind of, right?
Oh, behind the scenes of Our World is what I started watching.
That's what you started watching,
also
right?
narrated by David Attenborough.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Wonderful Life.
He's raking it in.
But yeah, so like, could you? I mean, obviously, megapixels is more for photography,
right?
But it's still a selling point when we see Canon, we see Lumix, we see all these different mixed use cameras, right? The A7 III versus the A7S2. You have 12 megapixels. I have 24. The A7R4 has like 60 something.
Yep.
Those are basically more photo driven capabilities. Why is that?
I mean, they've been coming out with a lot more like CMOS sensors. I think Nikon actually just came out with a new one that's really insane. But in terms of mine, it's like 12 megapixels. You got this. They all shoot full frame. So like FX6, A1, their whole kind of line is full frame. It's a great look compared to the Super 35 and the Komodo and your old Canon. But it's kind of like the effective megapixels within that. So mine's going to be able to get like 409,000 ISO because there's so much light being hit on like each pixel with it being bigger. Whereas with the other A7 Mark III, you're going to have more megapixels, great for photo. Whereas the light sensitivity is going to be probably a little bit more noisy, a little grainy. Still great because who's shooting at over 100,000 ISO?
Animals are monsters.
Yeah. I mean, I could look through my viewfinder in Flagstaff, which is a dark sky city, and when you're out there, I mean, you've seen it, the Milky Way, like you can see it through the viewfinder and actually pick up like the little lights in the stars, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. I mean, we could see it with our bare eyes. It was very faint, but in camera, you could see it.
Oh, it's ridiculous. You kind of get like the purple, different little kind of contrast in it.
So like with ISO range, how does the FX6 compare to the rest?
So FX6 is like very similar because they came out the A7S3 before, and then they came out the FX6, and it was kind of like bridging the gap to like, maybe people want to get this, but they're not doing photos. So this is like the video driven one, because essentially you're getting the A7S3 with like, instead of, they have log, but they have like S-Cinetone with that built-in electric ND.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool, especially because you can do like auto. So if you're kind of going from like a inside to outside shot, kind of like we have garage right here basically, and if you're going inside to outside, you're going to get overexposed. So instead of racking iris, you're going to be kind of racking ND, quote unquote.
Yeah, and I can see all the toggles for the switches, the clear, ND on, ND auto, ND preset.
Yep.
Variable ND. There's literally just a whole section for ND, which is, my limited use of Canon technologies is, C100, 200, 300, 500.
Yeah.
And, they just have ND switches.
Yep.
And I don't know how, I didn't get to use the 500 that much or even the 300 that much.
And those are like mechanical, right in front of the sensor. Yep. I haven't seen any tests in terms of like the color because, like with our variable ND in the front of the glass, makes it like that blue shift.
Yeah, I hate that blue
I haven't
shift.
seen any sort of tests in terms of like behind the glass ND of kind of how well that goes, but that'd be interesting to see.
I also, and this may be a little too much for your research. I know you had limited time, but there's S&Q, which is Sony's version of slow-mo. There's 3 presets.
Does that stand for slow and quick? Is that what they put it down to?
I think so. Because there's also quick motion, which I found out on my camera, which is kind of cool.
It uses those frames and kind of just does it sped up.
Yeah, it speeds it up, and it's interesting. I mean, I'm still trying to understand it. It's really the kind of ether of trying to figure that out is trying to get like a video where instead of water just pouring, it's like water just steaming,
right?
You know, like when you get a long exposure of a waterfall.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to get with this quick motion, and it's hard to do because every little movement becomes a lot more rapid. So like if you're not stable and there's a little bit of wind, it's just
and you tried that in Sedona, right? When we were at the creek.
Yeah, I tried it there, and I also tried it at that really cool mall we went to, whatever it's called. Where we went around, we did that black and white field day.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. Here in kind of a DC Ranch in Scottsdale, where we're based out of.
DC Ranch. I didn't
that. North Scottsdale. But yeah, I mean, I'm always a tech specs guy, but like, you know, with the FX6 too, like we're shooting 4K, but it's like, it's not DCI 4K. Don't know what it stands for, but basically we're shooting 3840, whereas this one, I think internally you can do 4096. So you're getting that full
range, full gamut.
Yeah, exactly. And the FX9 is 4K too. They say 6K, but it's oversampled. So it's a 6K sensor that's to 4K, the downscale to 4K, which makes it nice because you're oversampling it.
So, do you plan to talk about the FX9 today?
Oh no, that was just kind of like I just want to talk about like the big brother of it all. Okay. That's kind of like the top of the line with all that.
When I looked, I'm on B&H. I looked up Sony, and then went into camera, professional camera. First one's the FX9.
Yep, it's like 11 grand.
It's 11 grand, and I'm like,
whew. Yeah.
No, thank you.
And it's got Genlock and timecode, and we've used timecode a little bit. That's still in the FX6, which is pretty nice. Whereas with Genlock, it's kind of like similar, but you're getting not just the audio but the video together. So like, you know, with Amiras and stuff for football, they're like all combined, you know, with that with Genlock.
All around you. Hopefully that comes out clear in the
hopefully
headset.
The audio is pretty good. We do video, we don't do audio.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, no, the ISO range is crazy. The new CFast Type A cards, which are, you know, first of all, if you had a FX6 and A7s3, it's like boom, you got an A cam, B cam. They work almost seamlessly with each other. And then
all the way down to the RX100. What's up?
Yeah.
Over here, it died.
I think they're on like the Mark 8 now or something.
What's yours?
Mark 4.
Ooh.
Yeah. I think it was the first 4K one.
Rough.
Yeah.
Which one of these buttons is the... Nope. There it is.
Yeah, there it is. The other one was for if we bought the Komodo.
Oh, yeah.
Just, there we go.
So what, you know, we've covered the FX6, you know, we got a limited timetable. What's the next camera you want to talk about today?
You know, the weird one, I think that was in between that kind of covered everybody off guard, especially just because on paper, what it looks like is the A1.
A1 steak sauce.
Yeah, I was thinking of the sauce myself. As soon as I heard of it, I was like, what?
Is it saucy? Is the new camera saucy?
It's pretty freaking saucy, apparently, with it. It does 8.6K oversampled, so you're getting 8K video out of that. I'm not sure why. Yeah, so it's 8.6 from the sensor. It's 50 megapixels.
50.
Yeah. So it's 50. I'm not sure the effective, but that's the actual megapixel count.
At that point, I mean, unless you're doing like murals for sides of buildings.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah.
So this is like the ultimate God tier mixed use camera.
Yeah, especially because we were talking about like kind of like sports photography, the use of that, you know, it's definitely applicable because you're getting 30 frames per second raw photos. So it's like, why?
More than why, but how?
Yeah.
Because, like, I shoot 20 and it takes me like 30 minutes to just upload those photos. That's not true. It doesn't take that long. It's actually, Sony's really good at, their
depending on the drive
software.
you have, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. But that's just insane because, like, you're basically shooting at 30 frames per second.
Yeah.
But they're all single photos and it's processing them all. And on top of that, it's correct me if I'm wrong, it's in that body style.
Yeah.
It's in a body style that's just big.
Just a little mirrorless.
This wide.
Yep.
Like,
and it doesn't overheat. I think Sony, the best thing they've done with that is kind of fixing that issue because it was kind of like, I think for them, they were like, oh, the R5 came out. And then it was like, that does 8K. It was kind of random. And they were like, all right, we're going to do 8K and a little video camera as well.
Because like with the first Sony Alpha, the A7S1, when we were at CES, they were doing this story of this guy who went and filmed someone hang gliding in the Arctic or something. And it was very cold. And they have the, first Alpha series cameras were known to overheat. And they made the joke that, well, we didn't really have that problem because when we finally got the camera off of the rig, it had ice on it.
Yep.
So we didn't have a problem overheating.
Yeah, no, and speaking of ice too, I mean, we were shooting time lapses last week in Flagstaff and you had the...
Oh, yeah, I had frost all over the lens, the camera. Oh,
yeah, we had a little 14 millimeter Rokin on and the whole, front element was just like frozen. Yeah.
But crystal clear.
Crystal clear.
So going into oversample of the A1, continue.
Yeah, so the 8K, it's very impressive. I'm not sure the actual use of maybe that. They had some cool footage on Sony's website of like, oh, this is what it, looks like. It'd be great for framing. Like if we had a 14 shooting 8K and we're like, boom, like we can get a 2-shot out of this basically, that'd be pretty cool.
We can get a 12-shot out of this.
Yeah, like exactly.
We took our 8K photo.
And
we just made 16 720p pics.
Yeah.
What?
You could.
What?
But I'd say the more impressive thing is it does 4.3K raw output in 10-bit, I believe. So to like an Atomos, Shogun, whatever little external recorder you're using, you could squeeze some pretty nice information out of that. And it's all going to, if you're using a Shogun, maybe the SSD, but those CFast Type A cards, which are just...
Yeah, and you're saying that's 8K 30p and 4K 120p video at 10-bit. Because that's what I'm seeing on here.
Yeah.
And then 4.3K 16-bit raw video output.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong too, but like the CFast Type A card, it comes in 80 gig and 160 gigabytes. And with 160 gigabytes, if you're shooting full 8K in the A1, I think when I was putting it into the kind of data calculator, getting like 30 minutes out of it, and that card costs like $300. So you're like, I just filled up a $300 memory card for 30 minutes.
Worth it.
Like, how many of those cards are you gonna buy?
It's always worth it.
Always worth it. I'd be filling up those constantly.
Yeah, it starts at 80. It's $396.
Yeah, is that what the 80 gig costs, or?
Yeah, the Sony 80 gigabyte CF Express Type A.
Yep.
Tough card. Oh, but that's a 2-pack.
Oh, okay.
That fills up your camera.
Yep. I don't even know why you'd have an SD card in there.
I'm not spending $396.
Yeah.
Unless I'm getting 2.
Yeah.
2 SD cards.
Yeah.
And they're more than an SD card, but still, but it's in that body for sure because it's especially in this body right here. Because
the thing is too, is it's great, but it's proprietary. So it's kind of like you better be invested in that Sony line.
Yeah, but it runs off the same battery that I'm running right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if we got it,
we got batteries for days.
We got 4 batteries for it.
Yep.
And
we'd have to come up with new names though for the batteries.
That's a good point.
Because what were the names we got right now?
We got Jerry in the camera.
Nice.
We got Beth and Morty on the side, and I'm tentative to name the next one.
Is it going to be a Rick and Morty reference?
It's 100% a Rick and Morty reference. I got some third-party batteries.
Right.
Those are Beth and Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
Secondary characters. Then we got Summer.
Yep.
Or no, I don't have Summer yet. That's a good point. So yeah, I do have Morty, which is the battery that came with the camera, and then I bought another MPF-Z100 that's proprietary from Sony. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm debating, whether it should be Morty or Summer. And then does that just make my camera Rick? I don't know.
I mean, I feel like mine's the Rick. I don't know.
That is ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Way too much. Way too much. And you knew the button. Off the cuff. Not even scripted.
Not even scripted.
I'm out.
No.
But yeah, also what I was going to say too with the A1, and I think across the line, FX6 might have it, didn't really have that marked down, but with the A7S3 as well, it's got 759 focus points. I think mine, the A7S2, has like maybe 200.
I got 400 plus.
Yeah.
But I can't brag about that anymore when there's this A1 sitting around with.
Do you have the eye
700.
the eye tracking at all?
I think so.
You might.
I might. I don't know. I have face detection.
You have face detection. Yeah, because the eye tracking was like a huge thing they were marketing, I think, because like you'd see sample footage of like a dog in slow-mo and it's tracking its eye and you're like, what? How?
Just keep focused. Just that with a macro lens would be just phenomenal.
Yeah, no, and especially just because people are still buying like autofocus lenses. Like we got a Batis autofocus. It's great. Unless you're using like Cine Primes and stuff on there.
Unless you drop your lens.
Yeah.
On the carpet.
Yeah.
And then you send it into Zeiss headquarters in Hebron, Kentucky.
Which is hilarious. Zeiss of Kentucky.
Zeiss of Kentucky.
Yeah.
I looked up the Indeed reviews of the jobs at Hebron Zeiss, and they said clearly management does not know what's going on here because they're in Germany and Japan.
Yep.
And it is a disaster. And I was like, oh, well, they probably still will fix my camera, my lens. And they did.
And what happened to it?
And I dropped it on a carpet.
What broke?
Face first. Oh, they said it was a problem with the CPU, but the lenses, the elements inside were clearly misaligned.
Right, because when we put it back on the camera, it wasn't like, I mean, the autofocus worked, but we couldn't do any manual focus, right?
Eventually. Yeah, that's the part I was getting to. They sent it back, said, checks out. Hook it up to the camera, and the cool thing about the Zeiss Batis, it's got this OLED screen on top that says Zeiss.
Yeah, with the little focus markings. It's beautiful.
Right, it's just Zeiss.
When it works.
When it works.
Yeah.
And so they sent it back saying it was all clear to go. And I was like, okay, cool. Put it on. Manual focus doesn't work. Autofocus works. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I swear it's using 100 points of that 400-point system because this autofocus goes from...
Yeah, it's kind of like a unpleasant...
There's a lag to it. It's not pleasant.
Yeah.
On top of that, the OLED screen doesn't work, and the manual focus doesn't work. And so they emailed me, hi, we see that you've recently received your product back in the mail.
Yep.
And we just want to know how you feel about your product and its return and the process in which it got here. And I was like, oh.
That is what it sounded like.
That's what the email sounded like, verbatim. And I said, I rate this a 2 because even though your customer service was decent, I'd give it a 6 out of 10. That's a 2 out of 10, everyone.
Very scathing email.
Yeah,
review.
I was like 6 because first of all, I didn't hear about my lens until I contacted you, and then I heard about my lens. Then you told me it was going to be replaced, and it wasn't. And then you told me that for half the price of the lens, it was going to be completely fixed or replaced. I get it back, and there's more problems with it today than when I sent it in. Yes, the problem I had when I sent it in was 10 times worse than the problems I have now. I can deal with the problems I have now. You can't deal with...
You just paid for less problems.
Yeah, I paid for less...
Mechanically driven problems?
Less visible problems. You know what I'm saying? Like, when we sent it in, like, there was, like, clear, just weird distortion on the edges of light. But now that's gone. But I can't manually focus, and I can't see what my marker's at, and I can't I already said manually focus. And the autofocus is just incredibly slow for the technology in the camera. And I've thought it's the camera, but it works with all my other lenses.
And I mean, especially with yours too, like mine has been around since I think 2015, so it's kind of getting a little outdated, as you would call it, I guess. But with yours, it's pretty relatively new.
Yeah, it's still under warranty at Best Buy.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna take the camera in at one point and be like, hey, like I dropped this thing. Can I get a new one?
Right.
And then
Then they
See
watch
if
our
that's the
podcast.
problem. Then they watch the podcast and they're
Yep.
like, wait, huh? Because I did drop it.
Yep.
I might just drop it in some water. Just kidding.
It was like slow motion too. It was just tripod. It was like, oh god, and I just heard the music playing in my head, and it was just like, ah.
It's like sometimes you're fine, but you're not fine. And,
Yeah.
you know, like Katy Perry's voiceover, and it's just like black and white shift, crash.
And then it was kind of like a GTA, just kind of no saturation. It was like everything was black and white for a few seconds.
Wasted. But like the thing is, I did it to save an $85 speed light. So
That's true.
You know, you got payoffs. You know, $650 or $85 speed light.
Exactly.
I'm living my best life. No, that's not the right one. Okay, we're just gonna
That
stick
one.
with it.
Well, I have a question for you then.
Shoot.
We talked earlier about like, you know, the new release of the FX3. Not sure if you saw a leaked photo of that, but what, based off of features you're kind of seeing among these, and that being at the bottom of the FX cinema line for Sony, what would you want out of it? What do you think they're going to come out with?
Well, the second they throw the FX there, clearly cinema driven.
Yep.
It's not going to be the A1. It's not going to be the A9. Any of those. It's just obviously no photo.
Yep. I'm assuming it's going to be still full frame and all that. Especially because, like, what, the Sigma FP, those little ones have full frame still, so I'm assuming...
That's true. But is the Blackmagic 6K, is that full frame?
Super 35.
Super 35.
Yep.
I would argue that it's Super 35.
Okay.
Because, you know, the way Sony kind of goes with their thing. It could be higher, but it seems like with the A series, it doesn't matter. The higher number you get, there's no correlation to anything in there. But the FX series, the FX9 is the father of them all, as you said. It's the 9. The 6 is a little bit better. The 7 is whatever. You know, like the specs go better. You know,
they're kind of
the
like
higher
hybrids
up you
of
go
each
up.
other.
Yeah,
You know, as you kind
and
of go.
so as you go up, I think this is going to be in direct competition with Blackmagic. I think because you pointed out the lines between the Canon mirrorless line and the Canon releases and the A1. I think this is going to be a competitor to the Blackmagic, which now has an OLED screen and a OLED viewfinder.
Yep.
And a tilt screen for the measly payment of $500 more.
Yeah, I've already seen some reviews on that too that are not really the best, I think. But hey, I mean,
It's just a 25% increase for 2 features that should have been standard in the original product. But we're Blackmagic. Remember Da Vinci?
yeah.
That's us.
Yep. I mean, for the price point, it's like, you know what, like $2,500 or whatever. I'm like, you know, if that's your budget and you're like, I need just on set like raw and some resolution, it's like, okay, like yeah, that's good to go. And in terms of the sensor too, like with Super 35, the Komodo is Super 35, but it's like a little bit taller. Like this, it's just a little bit bigger, kind of like the Gemini, I think. So it's kind of like, you know, you're shooting 16 by 9. I think in the full 6K in the Komodo, you're shooting like 17 by 9 or whatever. So it's like that little room to work with.
You
and
can
then
kind of cut in a little bit.
Yeah, then you add cine bars.
Yeah. Or you had that like 18 by 1.
Yep.
Or like the 218 by whatever it is. That like,
Yeah.
YouTuber like
Yeah,
sweet.
235 by 1, whatever. It's kind of like, you know, it should just be like an automatic preset in Final Cut now.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's 2, 3 by, you know, like we're here, trying to line it up with the camera, but it's like this, right? But I'm talking about the one that just takes it like from here.
Oh yeah, the
to
185,
here.
whatever, like
Yeah,
the
the
tiny
185
little.
that's like, we're on YouTube.
Yeah, no, we did that for the last podcast. Our little tiny cine bar.
We're not saying we don't do it. We're just making fun of ourselves.
Oh yeah, no, of course.
So A7S3, we've mentioned it a few times today.
Yep.
I think that's where we go next. But before we go there, what are your thoughts on the FX3? Beyond, you know, with what I've said, you've said a little bit. Tell us more.
I think in terms of, let's say you're like an indie production, you're going to a rental house or something. I have no idea how it's going to work out in terms of like the rental houses with the FX6 or FX3, but you know, I'm kind of imagining it like, okay, you got A-cam, FX9 shooting something. You got FX6 is maybe like, I don't know, like a second unit or something, or, you know, just getting B-roll. And then the FX3 is kind of like, hey, we need to just throw this on the helmet. This guy's parachuting or something. Like, you know, you want to have that nice camera for those crash cams, as we call it, which would be like, okay, we destroyed a little camera, but we didn't wreck our $11,000 FX9 or, you know, whatever. So I think And as I talk about the FX3, lights go out. It's just so impressive. But
turn out the lights in here, baby. I still look
bad.
good. I think this light is really just.
Yeah,
I still look great.
But no, I think that's what the FX3 is going to be. Is just kind of like that small. Like when I saw the leaks for it, it has like quarter 20s on the body on the top.
So you think it's a competitor with Komodo? Something like that. It's like the V cam, the travel crash cam.
It's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like these are like the ultimate GoPros because no one wants to use GoPros anymore. They want an interchangeable lens cinema GoPro. That's what I see it as.
I want to argue with you. And that's just because I like to argue.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's true. That was the biggest issue is I remember you first doing the RX100 in your GoPro footy, and I was just like, dude, it's all about this Canon T6 eye gang. You don't want to be able to.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, but how much more expensive is that? And I was like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's not that expensive.
That's why as soon as I got into the whole A7 line, now. But yeah, because I think it was like 24 to 70. But I'm a huge Zeiss fan with it too because I like just the.
I'm just checking something in the background.
Oh, okay. But yeah, just the cooler tones out of the Zeiss is kind of what I liked. Canon's whole color science in general, though, has been awesome. Just regular. I mean, we'll be shooting log with LUTs, and that looks great too. But I think just skin tones in Canon, they usually have that pretty nailed. But that argues the same point for red. I've only shot on red a few times. I did the red education course and kind of played around with the Monstro, the Gemini. Haven't actually had a chance to play with the Komodo yet. I know a couple operators of it, but I think that's just such a huge game changer in terms of as soon as GoPro came out, it was look where we can put these cameras. And it's kind of like what it is now. It's kind of look where we can put all these cameras.
I mean, the Komodo's it's 4 inches by 4 inches, right?
It's just it's 2 pounds, a 4x4 cube.
Little box.
Yeah, just a tiny little box. And then you got the little BP9 batteries in the back, the Canons.
The Komodo butt cheeks.
Yeah, the little butt cheeks. Yeah, exactly.
The Komodo butt cheeks.
Yep.
Love that.
I'm sure someone in the forums is like, yeah, no, they're just butt cheeks, guys.
No, that's what Phil Holland said. That's why I started calling it butt cheeks. Right, yeah. I watched them. It was him, Tim.
Yeah, Tim Doust.
Tim Doust, yeah, and 2 other guys, and they were just talking about it. And anytime someone talks, Phil's just kind of yeah. And you're just dude, come on,
right.
You're the shit.
Yeah, if you guys have Apple TVs and stuff, I mean, just the screensavers when you're not watching anything, those are shot on reds, and some of them are using 3 reds, getting a 12K image going over that, and that's Phil. So it's
Dude, did you see what Tim did with the Komodo most recently?
No.
So he put it on this giant rig where there's this arm up top and it's angled down and it's for product videography, and so the product goes in the middle of the table and it's just spinning around.
And they're swinging it around. That was a Komodo?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure it's a Komodo.
Yeah.
I'd have to double check that, but everything he's been doing recently has been Komodo.
Yeah. No, definitely, because they all got a lot of pre-production units too. I mean, I emailed when they came out with Stormtrooper. I was like, yeah.
Let's get on this.
Right. I mean, the coolest thing about the butt cheeks of the Komodo too is kind of that hot swap. Is you can take one off, pop it on, still keep recording, or go to a V mount. But I think that's the coolest part about that one.
And I know we said we were gonna go to A7s3, but we're already on Komodo. We should go to Komodo.
Yeah.
Besides the sex appeal with the butt cheeks, everyone likes a good butt, guy or girl.
Yep.
Asexual or not. All other aside. What are some of the things because this is the first non-Sony camera, we've talked about other ones in relation to Sony. This is the one you've been wanting for a while. This is the one you're all about. What are some of you said it's Super 35, which I know as someone who's been your friend for a while and trust your camera knowledge more than a lot of people. Not a lot of people would trust his camera knowledge, wouldn't trust his camera knowledge. I just listen to him more than I listen to other people.
Yeah, I mean, COVID, who are you going to talk to?
Tell me some of the things about Komodo.
there's always the little gimmicky kind of features in cameras, but especially with this one, it's got that little cute antenna on the side. That's for that red control app. And so it's kind of got this tiny little LCD on top, which is like, if you're doing a shot like Tim Dallas was doing, you're never going to see that. So I think one of the coolest things is having that red control going to your phone to see the frame and kind of just see like, oh, this is the waveform, whatever. And it's just kind of cool to be able to like do that with such low latency too. Like I was surprised with how low latency was. And with the other DSMC 2-line Reds, they had like the antenna built in, I believe. So it's kind of like that signal wasn't really getting through the best, whereas this one's on the outside, works great. And I think a big selling point for a lot of people, and we talked about like the inspiration of like having a camera like that, is when you buy a Red, you're not really like just buying a camera. You're kind of like now in this community of other Red owners.
Yeah.
And
it's a step up. It's kind of like, we were trying to do this project with a buddy from school, outside of school, and it just became a little bit too much for us. A little out of our wheelhouse, to be honest. And one thing we tried to do is kind of, because we have our Sony suite and our Sony suite of lenses, and we have adapters to EF mount lenses, and those are pretty cheap. We could kind of do a very low budget run and gun with the Sony suite.
Exactly.
And he said this phrase, and I think about this all the time. It's like, I was like, oh yeah, no, like people keep offering to help us out, and they all actually have Sonys. This is awesome. Like, so many people have Sonys that it's this kind of cool thing that we don't even have to
use. Might as well use the gear.
They already know how to do it.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he goes, but that's the point, like I don't want to shoot on Sony because kind of everyone shoots on Sony.
It was kind of like a mainstream kind of thing.
And I was like, maybe it's a mainstream thing, but it also kind of takes away that level of like, it was kind of like when it hit my ear, I was like, shoot. That's not what I said. I was like, you're right. Like, because everyone has access to these, it doesn't make you better by using one. I get what you're saying. What you're saying is like that look, that style, that vibe isn't the same. But my argument would be, isn't that the beauty though? Like the beauty is that so many people can use it that we can literally, like, if we make something better with a tool that everyone has, doesn't that kind of set us apart? And he goes, yeah, you're right, like, and it doesn't, blah, blah, blah. And we kind of just kept talking, but it just kind of, that conversation
from his point of view, is kind of like,
vibrates.
With everyone, they have like their passion projects, it's like, I want mine to be unique. It kind of takes away the uniqueness of it. But I like your point too, because the whole reason I used my A7S2 on a project at school that we did in Sedona as well was kind of like highlight those features. It was like we had 3 characters, one wearing a black suit, a gray suit, and a white suit out in the sunlight of Sedona. And to be able to capture all that dynamic range on a camera like this at its price point is like, wow. Like,
with limited scrims. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You're not throwing up a 12x12 sky diffusion pen. No, the most you got is a 5-in-1 deflector. You're just kind of following people with you.
And also, if you guys want to check that out as well, I believe it's called The Believer now, but or Heart of a Priest. It's on IMDb as well, but it's a little short film. It's on YouTube, I think. Went through the film festival circuit. Hunter McMillan directed it, and Angie produced it. It was great.
Yeah.
And really just kind of highlighted the effectiveness of these Sony cameras that we're talking about.
DP Cheyenne Nicole.
Yes, DP Cheyenne Nicole. I was camera op for some of the shots and did a drone shot that may not have made it.
Yeah. The reason I bring up, Cheyenne is she's someone we like to work with. And she kind of, went through, did the shot list, did all that. And it was kind of like, because it's a student film, was, between you and her of, shooting things like that.
And the professors wanted us to use our Canon gear that we had at our checkout room there, which was, C200.
Had to be raw.
The whole workflow of raw, especially, with what the resources that we're limited to, especially at the school, it's kind of like, no, like, let's not do that. Let's do 4K. If we had external, we could maybe do ProRes, but we're like, no, like, let's just shoot this. And then we used our Arri LUT over that, and it just looked like gorgeous. Cheyenne colored it as well, and it was like, wow, like, this is what you can get out of a little 12 megapixel full frame camera.
Yeah.
I was gonna say back to the Red too, with kind of like the whole community aspect of it. This is like the first time that like somebody like us out of school, you know, we're 22 years old, can like have the possibility of buying a Red, because I think they came out with the Raven, which was more than double the price of this. So it's kind of like that was their entry level one, whereas now it's like, no, this is the entry level for Red. So it's kind of like more people can be in that community now.
Yeah,
that's what I was gonna say.
And that's what's cool. It's kind of like it's creating that step for, like I was pointing out the analogy I was drawing to with the Sony suite.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of taking those people and it's kind of being like, you can make this move into cinema.
Yeah,
it's like it's not just videography. It's cinematic.
Photography.
Photography. I'm Roger Deakins.
I was going to say David Attenborough again.
I'm David Attenborough.
Yeah, no, I mean, not everyone could buy a Arri Alexi Mini LF and be Deakins, I guess. But again, the whole gear thing, you know, it comes with the person actually using it as well. You know, I have my style, you have your style. You know, Cheyenne has her style.
My style is pretty experimental, but it's I find it satisfactory.
Yeah, we took the same avant-garde class, so
yeah.
But no, I mean the Komodo would be super awesome to get. You know, it's definitely like a future kind of thing.
We could throw it on the Ronin S. I mean,
exactly. Like we already
they threw. Tanner told me that they threw a helium, overloaded it. Don't try this.
Yeah,
he watched a video where someone threw a helium on.
I think they reversed it. They like turned it upside down for the weight or something.
Yeah,
and
turned it upside down, but like it was like 40 pound setup or something like that. It was something crazy, but
and especially with the Ronin S2, I've seen some YouTubers using that where it's like the Ronin S2 with the Komodo, throw a zoom lens on there, and you're like, boom, you can like run and gun with a single hand gimbal and like be shooting a feature.
I mean, yeah.
And
the beauty is like it's kind of moving away from features, which is fine because you know the future of content is unknowable. Like no one's clairvoyant when it comes to the future of media. And
well, now that it's Netflix approved, it's kind of like what's stopping all these creators from using this camera and going and distributing it on platforms such as Netflix. Kind of with, I think, what was it, 6 Underground? I wouldn't recommend the film. It's very like
aggressive.
Very aggressive. Just the shots so fast and quick. It's basically an advertisement for Alfa Romeo. But it was cool to just see some of the shots where they're like, oh, this was shot in Komodo. I'm like, wow, like, okay, like that little camera was used for this film that's on Netflix. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
And it was also used for, correct me if I'm wrong, the J-Lo, A-Rod, DJ Khaled, Michael Bay directed Super Bowl film in 2020. He used the Bayham, am I not? Or Baby Bayham?
Yes, Baby Bayham. Little lime green sucker, yeah.
6 Under is also, 6 Underground is also Michael Bay.
Yeah, Michael Bay as well. Yeah, he's in the whole Red Team along with like, you know, Jason Momoa and stuff. And, you know, it's great that they're giving it to people who are like, you know, it started off as a crash cam. They're like, let's give it to Michael Bay.
Yeah.
Let's blow it up.
Josh Brolin got one that was literally, it's brass, like Jason Momoa's, but it's got the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yep. It's got all
kind
the
of
stones.
sick. Kind of hate you, Brolin.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I'm working my ass off to get to a Komodo, and you're just getting one bejeweled for free.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope he shoots something on that. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been using the vintage lenses on the Komodo as well, too, because it's like, again, with that uniqueness, it's like, how do I get my look to look different than someone else's look?
Yeah.
And this kind of gives you so much range since you're getting that 16-bit RAW.
And so you've said this a few times, and I a lot of the time, just a disclaimer, when Colin talks about tech stuff, I will kind of... Oh, that's really?
Tripp changes the channel on his
What?
head. He's like, no.
That's absurd. So, like, that's in this camera. Mm-hmm. And he gets it, but he just likes talking about it. So,
oh, yeah.
You've said the phrase global shutter at least 6 times this week.
Yeah.
And I have a very limited idea of what that is. Could you go into a little depth about that?
You know, actually, while I talk about it, could you look it up?
Just
because
so
I don't want to be just speaking out my ass here. But
I was kind of hoping you
with
would.
the global shutter, you know, some of the other cameras we've been talking about has rolling shutter. And you've seen that where on a tripod, you're panning left to right. Or, okay, so La La Land. You remember that shot where they're in the bar? There's some behind the scenes of it. But he's playing on the piano, and it's doing that thing. Great camera. You don't really see the rolling shutter. It's just so dark in here.
Turn out the lights in here, baby. We're still going.
I'm going to get back to this, but real quick. We are using 4 L series batteries on these things. They're supposed to last like an hour. I'm not sure why.
This one had 50% on one battery
Okay.
and 75 on the other. Both of these had 75.
Right. But yeah, no. We'll talk about those lights later. But yeah, with the global shutter, I mean, in that shot we saw in La La Land, that it's not like going diagonal a little bit, where like that frame is kind of like washing through a little bit and just kind of flying side to side. Whereas with the global shutter, you're getting like none of that. It's gonna like stay consistent with the frame and not have that weird kind of warp you're going through.
I'm looking at that warp you're talking about. It's someone going through the city, and it's literally everything's just
Yeah, like if you're tracking a car and a street sign, if you pause that frame, that street sign is probably gonna be sideways. Whereas with the Komodo, and I think they have it on their website, it's gonna be straight up. And that's the big thing, I think, with this that caught people off guard as well. Is kind of like, wow, look at this little camera that can do like global shutter. And I think that's also effective with the whole NTSC PAL kind of thing of like, you know, hey, I'm going to go shoot in the UK or something. I think there's an effect with that as well.
Yeah, see, that's the part that I did know about is like you have to change the I think it's PFV or something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I believe it's kind of like the voltage to the sensor. It's kind of like they're on a different circuit than we are.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like with those stupid outlet, you know, things you have, whatever. It's kind of like you have to change that for the camera.
Yeah, which like I remember us learning about this in our second workshop class when we were actually getting to touch C200s and work with them, and like you're going up and down, and you see this thing and you're like, well, why would I use 50 for this in America and 57 in Africa? And he's like, I couldn't tell you why. I just know not to mess that up.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like, it's a fair point. So.
Yeah, because it kind of goes with the frame rate, I think. Because what was that? It was like 59.96 versus the...
Yeah, it's exactly with the frame rate.
Yeah, it kind of plays with that. You know, in terms of my technicalities and all that, not too really sure.
Yeah.
But, no.
Because, again, I'm looking at this online, and it's exactly what we're talking about. And it says the opening to this on B&H is amazing. There are 3 things that are certain in a digital filmmaker's life, in no particular order: late night, taxes, and CMOS imaging sensors. Which is so true because every single one of these cameras you've talked about is CMOS.
Yep.
That's literally just Sony sensors.
Yep.
Sony sensors are standard in almost all cameras.
Yep.
So like, just, you know, no, you're going to be facing this rolling shutter because most, if, you know, not all, because the red is a CMOS sensor, but it's got the global shutter, has this distortion, this rolling shutter that you have to be ready for.
Yeah, and that's why, again, we were kind of talking about the whole crash cam revolution, is because, you know, if this FX3 comes out and it's got global shutter, like, that'd be so cool. Because with the Komodo coming out, it was kind of like, the engineers, I'm sure, had to think of it. They're like, it has to have global shutter because it's a crash cam. It's going to be moving so quick, especially with Michael Bay doing his things. And
Classic
so it's like...
Michael Bay.
Yeah. And so it's like, it has to have global shutter for that. And that was a great choice to put that in and implement it. And plus,
well, like
it's not
you said, you
overheating.
wanted... The idea of a crash cam is you could throw it on the side of the plane, you could throw it on top of the roof, you could throw it on under their car. You could throw it.
Yeah. You could just chuck it.
You can just chuck it.
Yeah.
Not saying it's not going to break because it's not a GoPro. You can just we broke your GoPro. You remember that? That was fun.
Yeah.
The truth is, you know, when you're doing these things, when you're shooting Red Bull, you're shooting at Silverton or Deer Valley or wherever you're doing or whatever you're doing. If it's high speed, if it's action, if it's crazy, you can't have a rolling shutter. You have to have a global shutter unless it's stylistic. I mean, hell, what if you shot everything from a dolly and the whole movie was supposed to like look like the buildings were all on a slant? That'd be cool, but like I'd get sick. But still, you know, stylistically.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just another thing of making this camera pretty unique. And you wouldn't think about it looking at that image or something later.
So I think the lights are telling us it's about time to go, but we have one more thing to talk about. That's the camera I told you that one day I was going to buy so that I could outperform you just enough.
Just a little one-up?
Ha!
Which camera is that?
One-up. The Sony A7s3.
Yes.
When it was rumored that, you know, we were all still waiting for it, the A7 III had just dropped or was going to drop, and I was waiting for it.
Yep.
And then
I waited 5 years.
You did.
Yeah.
And then it finally did drop. Arguably the cheapest camera on here for. I mean, it's
all the
a
cameras we've been
beast.
talking about. This one's $3,500. Everything
It's
else is
half
like
the price.
6,000 or more.
Yeah, it's half the price. Tell me about the scratch cam.
A7S3.
Tell me about the A7S3.
You know, with the A7S3 again, it's the same megapixel count as mine. It's just got a big bump in it because the professors at our school didn't want us to shoot our friend's capstone video on it because of its 8-bit capabilities. Pretty limited. Whereas with A7S3, you're getting that 10-bit 422. Mine was 420 internally. So it's in terms of just color science, you're not getting too much out of it. But you know, when we did S-Log, we got the skin tones all back and everything. It worked out fine. But it's just kind of, I think as we grow with cameras, and especially with the A7S3 and the future of it, it's just kind of like giving these little, we're kind of bumping up the specs ever so slightly. And then, you know, with this whole DSLR revolution and now with mirrorless and everything in general.
And the current
is
crash
changing
cam revolution that you have
Yep.
coined
I have
yourself.
coined.
He's coined it.
Yes.
Coined
Crash cam
and
revolution.
minted.
But you're just getting like, it's just changing so fastly because 4K 120p sounds great now, but like I could see us next year, you know, 4K 240. I mean, Nikon just came out with one that I believe the sensor, the CMOS, can do 4K at like 1,000 frames per second, which is like ridiculous. Very specialty, like, you know, I'm not sure when you maybe use that, but sorry, with the A7S3 too, you have that raw external capability. That was the big thing with that.
Yeah, because we haven't had the capability of RAW on any of the suite of lenses. Maybe the A7S or the A7R4.
Perhaps.
I think kind of dabbled with it a little bit, but not entirely sure on that one. But this is the first Sony mirrorless for sure that has external RAW.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting 16-bit raw external out of it, and you know, for such a small camera, again, I think like that's gonna be huge for a lot of productions. There was like, I think like a couple little horror films and stuff that were shot on the A7S3 as well. So it's kind of like,
and like you mentioned earlier when you said that the A1, the steak sauce, had the 759-point fast hybrid autofocus.
Yep.
This also has it.
Yep.
So same body, same battery, same autofocus. You don't get the megapixels. You don't get the 8K.
the ISO is going to be different. The lights,
ISO is
the whole
different.
sensitivity is going to be a little bit different.
But you get 10-bit internal.
Yeah, 10-bit 422
Just so
internal,
nice.
whereas compared to mine, again, 8-bit 420 with 422 external, it's kind of like, okay, I could like deal with that. I mean, the first A7S external could do 4K, so that was kind of huge. It was like, wow, like I'm not sure when it came out, but like for that time, it was like I can buy this camera for I think like $1,500, $2,000, whatever, and get 4K. Yeah. But it's just changed so much now, especially with 8K and Blackmagic doing 12K.
And people actually putting 4K in cameras. Because we're getting 4K capabilities, but why is mine 3998?
Plus for, yeah, like with, you know, the A7S3 external, you're going to get that full DCI 4K at 4096, whereas ours is that 3840, where it's like, you know, your 4K TV, my 4K TV are 3840.
Yeah.
So even if we shoot the 4096, you know, we're going to be watching it on a different format.
Yeah, I mean...
But it's nice just to be able to have that little...
Still that room, because like the reason you get the 4K camera is so when it's downscaled to 1080 computer screens or 1080, you know, 720 phone screens, it looks crisper. So why would I film for the exact same amount of pixels that's in my TV? You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, you know?
I mean, especially for like, you know, we're posting this to YouTube. Other people are posting like A7S3 footage to YouTube and everything. It's like, it's going to look great. But you're getting that compression.
If you want it to look good, go to Colin.
If you want it to look good. Yeah, some people will understand that more, I guess.
That's just an inside joke when we were having a discussion of who would film a personal project, and Colin just kind of like
Flexed on them.
flexed on him, just kind of was like, well, if we want it to look good. And I was like,
Damn.
so who fell asleep last night and grew some balls.
Yeah, just like
Just
swinging,
out of the blue.
swinging confidence, just like
Just-
yeah, no, like it's gonna look good if I do it.
Yeah, no, like no one else can do what I do. I'm calling Patrick Giles.
Well, if you want to see what I can do, you can visit our website, thrifty50productions.com. Check out the drone link on there. Tripp's got some stuff on there too, I'm sure. But
it's funny. Everyone asks, so Colin's obviously the camera guy. Tripp, what do you do? And I look him dead in the face and I say, I am there
I am there, guys.
to support Colin.
You're like, my email signature says director in there somewhere.
Yeah, I direct promotional videos that the client writes, and I direct Colin to do the taxes, and I direct the direction of which Colin spends the money on stuff Colin wants to get. So
A lot of directions.
I think I'm a little bit more important than the camera guy.
Very underappreciated.
I don't write. I don't read. I don't film. I don't photograph. I don't research. I don't fill out forms.
You're
I'm
there.
just me.
I'm just
I'm
me.
just me, and you don't tell me what to do.
Well, I guess before we sign off too, this is our episode 2. Episode 3 is going to be a little unique. Next week, we're going to be doing some cool stuff, kind of to that point of time lapses that we were talking about. And then
Where do we want to do that?
Where?
We could do it.
I was thinking just like McDowell Mountains or something.
Yeah, I was thinking
There's
a
nice-
little bit north, or we could go out to. For those of you who don't know, in the Phoenix area, Fountain Hills is a dark sky city.
Ooh, okay.
But
Might be able to get some nice
I was
stars
thinking
there.
north. You were thinking northeast.
I was thinking the quickest drive from my house, I guess.
I see. I see.
No,
That's
I'm
a
down to
good-
go anywhere. We're gonna probably bring our lights when they're on. Right now we're using the Nanlite Forza 60s that we
These
got 2
things
of.
are awesome until they run out of battery, but I am really, really happy with these Nan lights. We're not sponsored by Nan Light.
No, just I like Aperture, used Aperture. These are great. The price point. We got these little tubes.
This thing's amazing.
Yeah, it's like a foot long little RGB tube we can play with. It's got little presets, and then the Forza 60 lights we got little soft boxes on them, and I mean they work when they work, but it's nice to look in the dark, I guess.
Where's that? Where's cop?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
is
we have
it?
like the cop
Switch?
light setting on there.
Oh,
Tons
no.
of presets though. I mean, you can change
so
a
many.
lot. It's great for just accent
I don't-
lighting.
Do you have to pair them to do the cop?
I don't think you have to pair them. I'm not sure, but yeah.
But yeah, I
Now
think,
we look creepy, like party light.
I don't know what you're saying. I don't look creepy. Let's make this creepier. I mean, not creepier. Yeah, let's go back to. Oh, the red would have been solid. You're right. I don't know what you're talking about, Colin.
It's not creepy at all.
creepy. I'm not here to eat your food.
I hope you guys watch the
That's what
video of
Sam
this too,
does.
not just the audio.
Yeah, no. If you're just listening to the audio, please just check the last 3 minutes because it just gets weird.
Yeah, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, go over to YouTube and check us out.
It'll be a spooky time.
All right.
I'm having too much fun with this. You should probably send me off.
All right. We're going to sign off, guys. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for episode 3. And then we're just going to be
Over and out.
producing all the ones we can.
Yeah,
Hope you learned something.
We're just trying to do our thing.
Yeah.
Study up.
Yep.
Pretend like we know what we're talking about.
Adios.
I'm out of here.
There we go. I just need your hand to leave.